We're good to go. All right. So, just want to say about me. I've been in this field for education nonprofits for about 24 years. I'm dead in dog years. But I currently oversee publishing. That's my sweet spot, my background. But I've been fortunate to work for organizations where I've been able to have CEOs say, this guy's completely insane, so we're going to let him do all kinds of crazy stuff with IT, web, membership, marketing, PR, social media, all those things. We've been really active in mobile at the American College of Chest Physicians. We launched our first app product in 2009, which was kind of the pre-Cambrian era for mobile things. We've also, we've done a lot of different things. My job isn't really as a publisher to create books and journals and publications. My job is to really look at our organization as a whole and find a way to tie together all that content, get it out of the silos, and find a way to get it out to our constituents, our members, our customers, those kind of people. And I think that's where what Mike just talked about is really crucial, having that mobile strategy to think about across your organizations. What's all the content you have? How can you bring it together in an integrated fashion rather than a siloed fashion and deliver it out to the people on the devices that they want to use? One other thing, I was put the slide up here. This is what I do for fun when I'm not doing publishing. I like to scoot it out and videotape incredibly large sharks. And people always say, why on earth would you do that? And they also say, you can't do that. And that's exactly why I do it. First of all, it keeps life in perspective. Once you do that, coming back and dealing with boards and CEOs and that stuff is nothing. But it also reminds me to be skeptical of conventional wisdom. There are people who are going to tell you that you can't do things. Do not listen to them. Don't listen to them, because 9 times out of 10, they're wrong. So let's get into mobile. All right. I work for a medical organization. I know we just heard from a medical organization, but I'm hoping these takeaways will be applicable to you regardless of where it is that you happen to work. The key thing for us is research. I like to be data-driven. When I'm going to talk to my boss or I'm talking to my board or I'm trying to pitch business cases for things that we want to do, you need to have data, you need to do research. If your market research group isn't your best friends, they need to become your best friends, because this will help you understand trends and make your case. The bottom line is that 8 out of 10 physicians use smartphones in a daily practice. That's from 2013. It's probably 9 out of 10 now, if it's not 10 out of 10. The bottom line is that this is a group that's very mobile-oriented. They're running around hospitals and various medical institutions with different devices, accessing patient records, making prescriptions through their all-script records or systems. They're using these things in the basement of their hospital and everywhere else. This is a really busy slide that you probably got no be able to see, but the takeaway is again that smartphones and mobile devices are changing the way not only that doctors access information, as Mike said, but also how they interact with their patients. And so it's important for us as a clinical organization to ensure that we're helping to make sure they're making the best clinical decisions, but also understanding that their patients are out there using that content as well. There's a bazillion types of mobile learning apps out there in the medical field. There's like more than 10,000 in the App Store alone, and we know that a lot of people use them. There's lots of them for different purposes. And there's also lots of professional apps as publishers. There's journals, there's reference, there's document and reference management, of course, meeting and event apps. We've done a lot of these things at our organization, and I think taken away some things that I hope I can help you navigate making some good decisions and avoiding bad decisions, because quantity does not equal quality. The fact is that the vast majority of people are not incredibly satisfied with the quality of content and apps that are out there. It's really easy to take content, slap it together into some kind of an app that basically repurposes something that they can read on their smartphone. That's not going to cut it going forward. It's going to have to be something that's a little bit more interactive. We've done a bunch of apps. Some of them have been successful. Some of them have not been very successful, and this is what I'm going to try to use as a takeaway. Just to give you a sense of the different things that we've done, we've developed a smartphone app for our journal Chest. We also have a slightly different iPad version to take advantage of the larger screens. We have done event apps for our annual meeting. We have done something really cool called the 3D bronchoscopy app. It was basically a way to show 3D modeling of the airways and lungs, as well as coupled with a little tool that allows you to trace your finger down the anatomy, and there will be a bronchoscopy video on the side that shows you where you are in the airways. Really, really great, cool tool for teaching anatomy. We've done case content in an app that gives them take-home pearls of wisdom and lets them interpret radiology. We've done things that help them interpret waveforms for mechanical ventilation. We have done other bronchoscopy-related things in terms of helping them learn how to do procedures in bronchoscopy. And the interesting thing is a lot of those apps had a really, really good cool factor, but they didn't necessarily have financial success. And I'll tell you the reason for that in a minute. But it's taught us a lot of things about what works and what doesn't work, and the kind of components that can help develop an app that will have legs and continue to bring in long-tail revenues that will help feed the organization's bottom line and have an app that's usable for a long period of time. I do believe that our future success as publisher is going to correlate with how well we as organizations provide products and services to our customers on the devices and media that they use. Abraham Lincoln didn't really say this, but I love putting up a picture of Abraham Lincoln because he's always quoting all kinds of great things. So let me switch gears and talk about the app that we developed that has really been successful, and that's what we call SEEK, Self-Education and Evaluation of Knowledge. We've done it on iPhone, iPod Touch back when the iPod was the thing that was the most commonly utilized vehicle, and we also have it on Android as well. When I talk about it's been successful, this is the thing. We have an organization that has 18,000 members. We've had over 28,000 downloads of this app, and we've had 60,000 in-app purchases of content. It frequently ranks as the top grossing medical app in the App Store. We've actually generated now close to $300,000 in revenue, and about half of that came in the past 12 months. The market penetration for these mobile devices is still growing. I think Mike talked about some statistics, and so did you earlier, but I'll tell you, there's something like 7 billion 7 billion mobile subscriptions in the world. About 1.5 billion of those are smartphone subscriptions. So there's still a huge gap between adoption of smartphone devices and mobile devices. There's still room for growth. My point there is, if you guys haven't entered this space yet, you haven't missed the boat. It's not too late. There's still a lot of adoption to be done there. Here's our revenue per year. As you can see, as I mentioned before, 2013, we kind of blew it out of the water, and 2014 is trending in a similar way. That's a success story. Now, I will tell you that we started that in 2009. It was a hard sell. The first couple of years, we were losing money hand over fist. We weren't making the development costs. There were a lot of people who were saying, well, we should kill this thing because it's not going to make any money. And we kept saying, stay the course. We're seeing some upward trending. By being patient and continuing to evolve and improve the app over time, we were able to really help kind of kick it into high gear and make it very financially successful from an app standpoint. Because there's a lot of people developing apps, not a lot of them are making money in the field. So the question is, how did we do that? First of all, I'll go back to market research and data. You need to understand your customers' preferences. We survey our members continuously about what they do, what they have, what devices they're using, but we also constantly ask them, what are you planning to get? Or what are the things that you see as being what you're going to be using in the next 12 months? That kind of helps us gauge trends. For example, I'll tell you, when we first started looking at developing an app for a device, the thing is, all our doctors had BlackBerries, as I mentioned before. Doctors didn't have smartphones in 2008 when we started looking at this. The iPhone had just come out. But what we were doing is talking to our docs and finding out what they were using. And they were saying, well, I've got a BlackBerry, but my institution's going to make me change to an iPhone because it integrates with their eScript system, and then later on it became the EHR records and all that. Well, it kind of made us realize that if we'd have just said, what are you using today, we would have built an app for a BlackBerry, and it would have been a complete disaster. Assess the market trends across your customers and your organization's demographics, and develop strategies. I think what Mike talked about the mobile maturity model, it is absolutely key for your organization that you guys develop a mobile strategy. If you're not already, if they're not doing it, people in this room, be the champions for your organization. Step up to whoever it is you need to talk to and say, if we're not doing this, we have to do it or we will get left behind. Successful apps are going to solve the problem or fill a need. They can't just be cool. And that's something that we learned is we found something that we realized there was a really strong need for, and we built an app around that, and that's what's kept it viable for quite some time. And the other thing is you've got to have a solid business case. Last thing I'll say is break down the silos. Like I said before, it's not just about what's in the publications realm. Your organizations probably have extremely rich content in other areas. Think about how your publishing acumen can be used to help take that content to market in other ways. So, how do you create a successful app? Again, I think it's identifying the right content. Again, I think it's got to solve a problem or fill a need. And the other thing is it's got to be app-worthy. And I'll talk a little bit about what app-worthy means, but it really has to take advantage of the capabilities of these mobile devices with the touch screen, pinch and zooming, all the different things that you can do multimedia. The other thing is you've got to do a lot of work on assessing the financial viability of the product, revenues and expenses, resources to deploy and support. Building a really good app is a lot of work. It requires a lot of project management, and it requires a cross-functional team across the organization. It can't just be a team in a silo of one department. You've got to involve your IT, your marketing, your education folks, people who've got project management skills, which oftentimes are the publishing people, that type of thing. You've also got to make a decision about, do you do this in-house or not? We outsource this stuff. We are not software developers, so we didn't feel that it was incumbent on us to hire people to develop apps. The other thing is that the technology is rapidly changing for us to try to support people who can keep up with the changes from the iOS upgrades and all those things. We'd spend a ton of money doing that, so we outsource it. I highly recommend that you look into the pros and cons of doing that. And then we've got to create a very detailed development plan. It comes around to really good project management. You've got to really take a look at the interface and functionality of the user experience. You've got to think about what kind of content you're going to be putting into it and how much content you're going to be putting into it and how often you can refresh that content to keep the app fresh and new and keep them coming back to access it time and time again. One and done apps typically do not make money. They don't have a long shelf life. People that use them, they probably, once they've gone through content, if it's static, they're probably not going to go through it again. Have a realistic timeline for development, and especially I mentioned testing. Testing apps takes a long time. It requires the input of a lot of different people, and I would also encourage you to get your stakeholders involved. If you have members or customers, get them onto that group so that they can help you test it and give you feedback, because your internal people have the bias of being internal, but your external customers can give you a lot of really excellent feedback. And the other thing is you need to have obviously a good marketing promotion plan, but also have metrics that you can demonstrate to say this has been successful. And there's a variety of different things that you can use to measure success. So in this case, I'm going to talk specifically about the Seek product, how we identified a problem and need. We do board review. Our organization does a lot of different things. We do an annual meeting, we do journals, we do all that good stuff, but we also do board review. And we saw that as really a high demand content that repeats every single year. Learners often don't have time to read an entire book to study for these exams, and many of you may be in fields where you have either some type of certification or exam-based learning. This is good stuff for an app. Your learners don't have time to read huge tomes of content, but they want to study a little bit when they have the time, and they also want to do it on whatever device is available, like we said before, whether they're on the train, whether they're on the elevator for 5 minutes, or on a tram going from one building to another. We wanted to be able to deliver content in small bites. Back in 2008, 2009, the whole iTunes thing was absolutely revolutionary. Selling one song at a time for 99 cents was completely insane, and yet it revolutionized that piece. We saw that as being, well, what if we could deliver this board review content a little bit at a time, instead of having them pay $200 or $300 for a giant study guide, or in some cases $500 for a big study guide? What if we could give it to them for $5 or $10 at a chunk and have them do it that way. And so that's how we went into this. And that made it affordable for fellows in training who are not yet full-fledged physicians out in practice to be able to afford more of this content. And we wanted to be able to deliver it to them on that device. So we looked at this, this is how it looked in print. This is the book that we used to publish. ACCP Seek was a book. It was a bunch of case-based questions with images that would show pathology and radiology, and they'd have to interpret laboratory values and have all that stuff memorized, and would have references for further study. And we looked at that and said, well, this is good because it's kind of granular. We've got we can do one question at a time or a bunch of questions at a time. It's got good images, so it took advantage of that pinch and zoom technology. In a book, we could put a radiograph in there, but they can't zoom a radiograph in a book. They can do it on an app and on a smartphone and a tablet, which was sort of, when we first saw this, we were like, this is exactly what we've got to develop here. It's also got built-in touchscreen actions. They go through the question, you've got to choose an answer. They can take notes on this. We developed this app to allow them to do the things that they would normally do when they're studying. They can type in notes and embed them in the product. They can actually record audio notes if they don't want to have to type something on their smartphone. They actually hit it and record a voice note for them to remember to go back and study something later. And then the other thing that we did was, for the references that are provided for further study, we have it link out to PubMed and access the abstracts of the content that it's referencing so that they can get easy access to that. And then the last piece that would be useful was when we're going through a patient history and there's all these blood chemistries and lab values, and they may not remember what the normal values are. Well, that's great. We can embed the table of normal values right into this product so we can use that as a reference tool and easily look at something and go, oh yeah, that's outside the norm, or it's within the norm. And that really helped us kind of think about how we could use this and embed all this content in place. That wasn't very easy to do in a book where you're flipping back and forth and things like that. The other thing that we knew this was a good opportunity for was that we had an authoring process where this product is refreshed every year. So we realized that every time we create more content with our authoring group, we're going to actually put that stuff out on the app and then begin to build a library of content over time. And that's what we did. The other reason that we feel like this is a winner is to be honest, people who are taking tests are very motivated customers. They want to get their hands on anything that will help them study and be successful. And so that made this content perfect for this. And the other thing is that a lot of the people who take the boards in medicine are younger physicians in training. They're already adopting a lot of this technology. So it's kind of a perfect storm of the various things coming together. So I think, when you're thinking about what makes a good and financially successful app, it's it's obviously high quality content. It's updated and timely. We do have multimedia to support things. We've got video clips and things like that. Having those references so that they can study further. It's got to be easy to use. We've indexed the content. There's a full text search through the app. The user interface is very intuitive. We've tried to make it very simple to use. And then we wanted to again be able to use that note-taking and highlighting for people to be able to actually study using the piece. The other thing is that we also added a scorekeeping so they know how many answers they've gotten right and wrong. It tells them how many questions they still have to take if they've purchased questions that they haven't gone through yet. And the thing that we're working on right now is to assess their overall performance in topic areas. We have these questions tagged to our curriculum so that we can tell as they're going through them if they're getting certain answers right or wrong in a topic area like asthma, for example. We can go back and say, we're building this so that eventually we'll be able to say, you've missed a lot of questions in asthma. Here's some more asthma questions you might want to buy, or better yet, here's some asthma courses that our organization offers, or here's journal articles that we have on asthma that you might want to study. That's the kind of integration that we're trying to build going forward. The other thing is creating different purchasing models. We've tried to be flexible, and at first when we launched it, we only allowed people to purchase it in a little micro bites, and at the time, that was kind of the typical way that people bought things. They wanted to buy a little bit at a time. We realized over time that behavior changed, and we got feedback from our users that said, well, it's nice to be able to buy it a little bit at a time, but it's kind of a pain in the butt after you get 200 questions in there and you're buying 10 questions at a time. It's a lot of work. Can I just download it all at once? 5 years ago, if we'd have thrown a product out in the App Store and it was $200, people would have flipped out and they never would have bought it. What's interesting now is they're willing to do that for the convenience of doing it. So we offer it both ways. You can buy it a little bit at a time. We can download it all at once, that helps them. And the other thing that we did is to download the app is free. And we give them a fair amount of free content with that free download. We want them to use the product. We want them to see what it'll do. We want them to see how it'll use. I call this the crack dealer model. What we do is we give them a little bit, we get them hooked on it, and then they have to purchase more after they've used up what they have. But it's actually been quite effective. And I'm running short of time, so I'm not going to go into all detail on this. I want to make sure we have time for Q&A and make sure we've got time for the presentations. But here's some of the interface things, just so you can see how it looks compared to a print book, how it looks on an iPad, an iPhone. The big thing is this is a really image-heavy product, and that's, if you have things that are image and graphic-based, there's a lot of capabilities here to create things that are interactive. There's a lot of revenue streams I talked a little bit about. I want to say one thing. I hear stuff all the time about mobile advertising. I'll tell you right now, mobile advertising is probably dominated by Facebook and Twitter. I don't think there's many people in our space getting huge dollars in mobile advertising. If you are, email me and tell me how you did it, because our experience, even with pharmaceutical companies who love to advertise, is that they're just not committed yet to the mobile space. So I think there's still going to be that access charge or subscription to content until things like that happen going forward. The slides will be available online, so people will be able to access them after the fact and everything. But the other thing I'll say is, don't be afraid to evolve your business models. When we launched this thing, again, it was really early, so we learned a lot of lessons by screwing up, which is a good thing for you because you get to learn from it. But when we initially priced the app, we priced it too high. We got a lot of feedback from people going, we love this, but this is way too expensive. And we took that seriously, and we said, let's cut the price in half and see what happens. We can always raise it again, but the nice thing about the App Store is you can change your prices, you can put things on sale, you can do things like this to try to generate sales and see how people react. So we cut the price, boom, the sales went up like crazy, and so we realized, we priced it too high. The other thing that you have to realize is that there are international app stores, and you can set different prices in different countries. So if you're worried that your product is too expensive for developing nations, no, it's not, because you can set the price for that country's app store at whatever you want. You can make it affordable to those people if you want. So the thing to understand is it's not just a one-price-fits-all or one-size-fits-all model. There's a lot of things you can do with mobile technology and pricing models to make it appealing to people. We try to run sales during our annual meeting, so we showcase our apps. At our annual meeting. We've got thousands of people there, so we can show off what we do, and we run sales so that we try to encourage them to buy some content, and again get them to try it, so they'll continue on and be users of the product as we go forward. So. So one thing about monitoring and strategy is that you do need to have metrics. Pay attention to your user reviews and your feedback. You can take it with a grain of salt. Let's face it, most people will leave feedback when they're unhappy, so you have to take negative reviews with a grain of salt. We've gotten a lot of negative reviews on our app. That's okay. We like to find out what people don't like so we can improve the product, and it's been a continuous process of evolution to try to make it better over the 4.5 years that it's been to market. So I've got some lessons that you can access. The big thing is don't be afraid to try things. You've got to have your strategy and goals. Research your target audience. Partner strategically. You don't have to build it all yourself. Market heavily, educate your users about what these things are, and prepare to respond to them. And most importantly, be patient, because some of these things are going to take time. You're not going to just launch an app and millions of dollars will flow in. It's going to take time to build up that usage. So with that, I will close out, and we're going to save questions for the end. Is that correct? All right, so I will move on. The other thing is I've added some more statistics at the end that you guys may find useful. Feel free to avail yourselves of those things after the conference, and I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you.